Welcome to another video of e-resource procurement. In this video, we are going to discuss about the procedure we follow to procure the e-resource, and I am going to discuss one process for procurement of e-resource of one organization. How we procure the e-resource practically. So generally we know that we follow this procedure. This is the life cycle of e-resources, where the first comes discovery. Once the product is discovered, identified, it is put on trial. Once the trial is over, based on the uses, we select the product for the use by the users. Then we provide the access to the users, and again based on the uses, evaluation and monitor management, we decide the renewal of the same e-resource for the next year, or we decide whether we have to cancel it. So this is the complete life cycle of e-resource. So we are going to see in this video practically how we process the file, or we follow the procedure. I take one new resource and I consider that I am going to subscribe these resource for my library. So what will come first, as we have already discussed in the previous videos, that everything starts with the recommendation. And who will be recommending? The recommender will be the authorized user. In general case, or generally it is, if it is college or university or organization, so authorized users who are eligible to recommend the resources for purchase are faculty. They can recommend any kind of document, whether it is online journal, print journal, e-books. And how do they recommend? They consider the trial access. If any particular product has been put for a certain period of time on trial, so they consider the product uses on trial. Second, if they already are using any product, so they consider for recommending this document also. Or if any other faculty of any other discipline has suggested for recommendation, so that also is kept as a base for recommendation. The faculty can also see the last year's subscription and can recommend for renewal. If any product is launched by publisher or submitted the proposal, and it has come to the notice that this product is going to be very useful, so in that case the faculty may recommend for the subscription for the current year. Now the next is, once the recommendation is done by faculty, the library professionals receive the recommendation in writing, that these are the resources required in the library. So the next comes that is put in the committee for the discussion. Suppose the library is having any library committee, so all the members they gather together, they meet, and the discussion starts on the recommendation received in the library recommended by faculty members. So there the first thing is considered whether library is having the sufficient budget for the procurement for the current year. Then whatever the recommendation library has received, it is calculated based on the offered price. And who is offering the prices? There are two things. If the library or the institute is the member of any consortia or any other consortia or negotiate where the price has been negotiated, so in that case library committee will look for the negotiated price by the consortium. If it is not, and the library is subscribing directly, so in that case library will negotiate the prices with the publisher or the content provider with negotiation committee, and will mainly focus on some of the very important things, that is the perpetual access, then access model, what is the offer price. All these things are taken care very seriously. So suppose it is finalized at the second stage. So the next is the approval by the competent authority. After finalizing the resources to be subscribed for that particular subscription year, the document is prepared with all the resources, with price detail and the period of subscription, and then it is submitted to the competent authority for the approval so that it can be procured in library. Once the third steps, that the approval is gained by the competent authority, the next step is submission of pro forma invoice and other document by publisher or supplier. The publisher or supplier will submit the pro forma invoice along with other required document for initiating the purchase requisition. The purchase requisition, it may vary from institute to institute. It may have the different format, or the institute may have the different purchase procedure also. I am giving one example with this particular video. So once the pro forma invoice is received by the publisher, so purchase requisition is generated, and it contains the suppose proprietary or authorization certificate, the service tax registration form, pro forma invoice, and the approval which has been taken for the purchase. So what happens when this step is completed? It is sent to the concerned office, like it goes to the internal audit, and further the fund is booked accordingly, because once it is audited, it is confirmed that yes, It goes to the finance department. There the booking of the fund is done based on the budget availability, and finally approval is given that yes, the item can be or the product can be purchased for this particular year. Once it is done, the next is the purchase order is generated, and it is generated by the competent authority, by the purchase office. So here also the case may be different in other organization or in other institute. Once the purchase order is generated, it goes to the vendor or the publisher, and then publisher is requested to produce the invoice, and if the publisher is not involved directly with the institute, in this case if there is any supplier or mediator in between, so the supplier is asked to provide the price proof or the payment proof for payment. So based on that, the further invoice is processed and sent to finance department. If the advance payment is to be made, in that case pro forma invoice is compulsory, and if the original invoice is sent, so the payment is made, and after making the payment the record is maintained in service or stock register. So it completes the purchase it completes the purchase by paying the required amount to the publisher or supplier. Once it is done, the next comes the excess. It is very important here to understand that when we send the purchase order, we mention here clearly the range of IP, or if it is user ID and password based, so that also is mentioned clearly. And in the purchase order itself, it is mentioned that the product should be activated on these IP ranges which will be accessible within the campus for the users. So the access, when it is ensured, it is broadcast to all the library members for use. After that, the license agreement, that is the most important part, because it contains the agreement between the publisher and the institute. And what it contains? The first, it contains the access period. What is the access period? For how much time it has been subscribed? What is the price detail? It should not vary from the purchase order. It should have the same value as it is mentioned in the purchase order. How many journals are subscribed? So list of journal also should be mentioned. The perpetual access. This is one of the very important point which should be considered very seriously. Why? Because sometimes it happens that the journal, due to some technical reason, or for the next year due to some reason, the subscription is not continued for 2 months. So in that case, whether the access will remain access will continue with the institute, or the publisher is going to stop, or the subscription is closed, so whether the institute will have the access of those subscribed document product or not. So the perpetual access should be discussed in license agreement clearly. Termination of license agreement. In what condition the publisher can terminate the license agreement, or in what condition the licensee will also have right to cancel the license. Then users rights. What are the rights institute has, and what is the prohibited use? Generally it is given by the publisher that if the institute violates the terms and conditions mentioned in the license agreement, the license will remain cancelled. The next very important point that should be discussed in license agreement, that is the dispute resolution. Generally, suppose the publisher headquarter is in USA and you are sitting in India. If any dispute arises between the content provider and licensee, in that case the dispute should be litigated in India. I mean the institute where exists, because it will be very difficult for the institute to settle the case in USA. So in that case the dispute resolution should be litigated in the same country where the institute or organization exists physically. The next point, that is the publisher licensee responsibility. What will be the responsibility of both publisher and licensee separately? It should be mentioned clearly, and general terms and conditions about the authorized users. Then what is the price and all the details should be clearly mentioned in the license agreement. So once all these are over, then license should be signed and should be sent to publisher. And after that, or in between also, the receipt of the payment from publisher side is very important, because it ensures that we have made the payment to the publisher and the copy, the product is procured and we have made the payment to the party. So this is the complete process for subscription of new resources. Now we are going to see that how to subscribe the print periodical. Here it is very simple, but we need to understand the concept of the print periodical procurement. I would like to mention, if we compare the condition of print periodical with book purchasing, there is a slight difference here. In case of book purchase, what we do, we place the order for recommended books and we receive the book and invoice together and we make the payment at the end. But in case of print periodical, we make the payment in advance and we keep receiving the different issues throughout the subscription period. So here also the condition remains same, just like e-resources. First we get the recommendation from the faculty. It can be based on suggested by any faculty, last year subscription and new product launched by publisher. So faculty considers all these for recommendation. Again it is put up in the meeting for discussion whether it has to be purchased for the current subscription year or not. Then the list is sent to the competent authority for approval with price detail and period of subscription, and once it is done, the purchase requisition here also it is generated, which contains the approval, the offer price or quoted price by the supplier, and proof of impanel vendor if the vendor is registered or impaneled. Let me clarify one very important thing here. Suppose the periodical is being subscribed. So the meaning of impanel vendor is that suppose you have invited the form for registration of the different vendors. You may have different vendors. So in that case, whatever the list is prepared, it is ensured that the number of journals are distributed equally to all the impaneled vendors, and once it is done, again it goes to the internal audit, fund booking, and finally it is approved by the competent authority. Then it goes to the purchase office where the purchase order is generated and it is sent to supplier requesting the pro forma invoice from publisher or supplier with price proof or payment proof so that the payment can be made. Here it is very important that in case of print periodical we get pro forma invoice because we make the advance payment, and once we receive the advance payment pro forma invoice for advance payment, we process it in the format of the organization or institute and send to final finance for the payment. Once it is done, we maintain the record in register and we request the receipt of the payment from the supplier to collect at the last. And after making the payment, the supplier starts sending the different issues of different order journals, and this continues till the whole year, till the subscription expires. So this is the complete procedure of e-resource and print periodical procurement. Hope I have been able to make you understand the concept of procurement in one organization or one institute, how the periodical or e-resource is procured. If you have any query or question, you may drop a mail at dptnitrkl@gmail.com, or you may reach anytime on 8895296796. Thanks once again for watching this video. We'll have more discussion in the next video. Thanks once again.